There is a quiet strength in letting go. In a world obsessed with control, with achievement, with constant forward motion, there is something radical, almost rebellious, about learning to live without force, to breathe without clenching, to act without obsession, to love without possession, and to exist without the need for everything to unfold exactly as you imagined. It starts with this realization: so much of our suffering is self-inflicted. Not because we deserve to suffer, but because we cling so tightly to our expectations. We grip outcomes. We chase what's not ready. We resist what's already here. And we tell ourselves that if only we try harder, push more, hustle longer, life will finally click into place. But the Stoics would say, no, that is not peace. That is not mastery. That is slavery to your own delusions. Seneca reminds us, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. And we waste it by trying to control what was never ours to control. The weather, the timing, other people, the outcome, the future, even our own emotions. We treat them like misbehaving pets that need to be trained and silenced. But Stoicism teaches us something softer, more enduring. It teaches us to meet life where it is, not where we wish it to be. That is the first truth. Present living is not a cliché. It is a practice, a discipline, a way of engaging the moment with full attention and humble acceptance. How often are we truly here? How often do we notice the texture of this moment? The rhythm of our breath? The kindness of a stranger? The warmth of the sun as it cuts through morning fog? Most of us are living in ghosts. We haunt yesterday's mistakes and tomorrow's anxieties. We talk about now, but our minds are 10 steps ahead, strategizing, solving, worrying. It's not presence, it's performance. But presence isn't something we wear, something we feel. It's a muscle we train. And it's this training that gives birth to peace. Marcus Aurelius, in his Quiet Power, wrote, "Confine yourself to the present, not as an escape but as an anchor, because the present is all we ever truly possess." When we stop forcing things, we begin to notice them. When we stop trying to control every corner of life, we begin to witness its unfolding grace. That doesn't mean we become passive. It doesn't mean we sit back and do nothing. It means we respond, not react. We participate without clinging. We act with intention, not desperation. There's a deep wisdom in allowing life to move without trying to twist its arm. Think of a river. You don't control it. You don't command it to flow in a straighter line or a faster pace. You can resist it and drown. Or you can flow with it and become something more. Stoicism doesn't teach apathy. It teaches intelligent surrender. A surrender that comes not from weakness but from clarity. From seeing that forcing something into existence rarely works, and even when it does, it doesn't last. What lasts is what's aligned. What grows is what's nurtured, not strangled. What thrives is what's given space. Acceptance of the present moment doesn't mean you love everything about it. It means you stop fighting with it. You stop turning your resistance into suffering. The Stoics believed in aligning the self with nature. Not nature as in forests and trees, but nature as the way things are. To go against nature is to suffer. To harmonize with it is to find peace even in difficulty. And yet, most of us do the opposite. We fight reality. We argue with it. We tell ourselves, it shouldn't be this way. And every time we do that, we lose. It's not wrong to want change. But there is a vast difference between intentional effort and forceful control. The first stems from wisdom. The second from fear. Don't force people to stay in your life who are ready to go. Don't force happiness when your soul needs space to grieve. Don't force clarity when it's time to sit in the mystery. Don't force progress when what you need is stillness. Forcing doesn't quicken life. It delays its real gifts. There is power in choosing stillness over struggle. There is power in showing up, doing your part, and then releasing your grip on the results. This is not resignation. This is courage. To walk your path with care but not obsession. To honor effort, not outcome. To embrace flow, not friction. And this shift, this subtle internal reorientation, is what begins to unshackle you from the tyranny of expectation. You stop chasing what you're not. You stop contorting yourself to match timelines that aren't yours. And instead you begin to live. Here. Now. As you are. Change is life's most reliable companion. We fight it, but it never leaves us. We ignore it, and yet it reshapes everything. Stoicism doesn't ask us to love every change, but it does ask us to accept it. Not passively, not blindly, but with the awareness that resisting the inevitable only deepens the wound. When we understand that change is not the enemy, it becomes the teacher, the sculptor of our character. the mirror that reveals who we truly are when all the comforts are stripped away. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you but how you react to it that matters." That single idea can transform the way we live. Because wrapped inside it is a powerful truth: the world doesn't owe us stability. Life was never designed to stay the same. And forcing it to will only leave us exhausted and bitter. You may not have chosen the storm, but you can choose how you stand in the rain. Think about it, all growth requires change. Trees shed their leaves. Snakes shed their skin. Even ourselves are constantly dying and renewing. So why are we so afraid of it? Perhaps because we confuse comfort with safety. We assume that the familiar is better, even when it's quietly suffocating us. But the Stoics urge us to go deeper. They ask us to see change not as a thief, but as a messenger. Not as chaos, but as correction. We lose jobs and we panic. We end relationships and we grieve. Plans fall apart and we scramble to tape them back together. But what if we paused? What if we stopped trying to rebuild what was lost, and instead looked at what could now be built in its place? The Stoics practiced this mindset every day. They didn't wait for catastrophe to humble them. They prepared their minds for it in advance. They practiced premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils, not to attract suffering but to train resilience. So when the winds of life blew their way, they didn't fall apart. They adjusted their sails. And that's the real art of acceptance. It doesn't mean loving every situation. It means meeting reality with open eyes, with dignity, with strength. It means saying, I may not control this change, but I do control who I become through it. Acceptance isn't giving up. It's growing up. It's understanding that some doors close so others can open. That some people leave because their chapter in your life is complete. That some goals dissolve because something deeper is calling you forward. And when we begin to live with that kind of perspective, we no longer force life into our molds. We allow it to shape us, to sharpen us, to make us more whole. But there's something even more profound that happens when we stop forcing. We begin to experience peace. Not the fleeting kind that depends on good news or validation, but the steady, enduring peace that comes from inner alignment. Because the more we let go of how things should be, the more we can appreciate how they truly are. The noise begins to fade. The panic softens. And we begin to hear what life has been whispering all along. This moment is enough. This breath is enough. You right now are enough. Peace is not the absence of struggle. It is the refusal to struggle against what already is. And that requires a daily choice. A daily turning inward. A daily practice of tuning out the chaos of expectation and tuning into the simplicity of now. It also requires kindness toward ourselves. Because sometimes we push ourselves too hard, thinking it's discipline when it's really fear. We believe that if we stop forcing, we'll fall behind. But behind what? A standard you never chose? A version of success that was never yours? A life built on someone else's timeline? You are not a machine. You are not meant to operate under endless pressure. Yes, growth takes effort, but it also takes rest, stillness, silence, a pause to recalibrate. And that pause is not laziness, it's wisdom. The Stoics knew this. That's why they emphasized tranquility as one of life's highest goods. Not because they wanted to escape responsibility, but because they understood that a calm mind makes better decisions. That a quiet heart is more aligned with virtue. And that when we stop forcing, we start flowing. We begin to work with life, not against it. It is not a failure to pause. It is a power move. A sign that you're no longer at war with yourself. So don't force the healing. Don't force the breakthrough. Don't force the connection. Life unfolds in its own rhythm. Your only job is to be present for it. What if you stopped chasing the next thing and instead started noticing this thing, this moment, this breath, this heartbeat? Sounds simple, but it's one of the most radical shifts you can make. The Stoics understood the value of the present moment not as a romantic ideal, but as a necessity for peace. Seneca warned us of the danger of living only for tomorrow. He wrote, "We are always complaining that our days are few, and acting as though there would be no end of them. And yet, how often do we drift into tomorrow's worries? Or get caught in yesterday's regrets? We replay conversations that have ended. We fantasize about outcomes we can't control. We build plans upon plans, all while ignoring the ground beneath our feet. The now. But life only happens in the now. You will never breathe a past breath again. You will never touch a future moment. You only ever have this right now. To force life is to abandon the present. It is to exchange what is for what should be. And in that exchange, we lose our peace. So we come back to the simplicity of this breath, to the feel of our feet on the floor, to the sounds around us, to the rhythm of the moment. This is where life is, not in our expectations, not in our goals, but in our attention. Mindfulness is not a trend. It's a return to the self, a return to what's real. The more mindful we become, the less we resist. The less we resist, the more we live. You don't have to have everything figured out. You don't need a perfect plan. What you need is presence. That's where clarity is born. That's where strength is built. That's where you reconnect with the only power you've ever truly had, your ability to choose your response right now. And this response, if chosen wisely, can shift everything. But how do we make space for that choice? We begin by letting go. Letting go is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's the understanding that some things cannot be solved, they must be surrendered. You let go of your need to control outcomes. You let go of people who no longer align with your path. You let go of emotions that cling to old stories. You let go of the internal pressure to be somewhere other than here. The Stoics remind us, we control very little, but we always control our minds. And when we accept what's beyond our reach, we find serenity in what is within it. Letting go also means giving yourself permission to feel without judgment, to sit with your emotions without drowning in them, to acknowledge that disappointment, grief, or frustration are not signs of failure, but signals from the soul, asking to be heard, not suppressed. The more we let ourselves feel, the less we have to fight. Emotions, when accepted, often pass on their own. Like clouds, they drift, but when resisted, they thunder. So let them come, and let them go. This is the core of the Stoic principle, amor fati, the love of one's fate. Not just tolerating what happens, but embracing it. Not as punishment, but as purpose. You lost the job? Perhaps it was redirecting you to something better. A relationship ended? Maybe it was never meant to carry you further. Your plans collapsed? Maybe life is inviting you to build something truer. You don't have to force clarity. It comes when you stop clinging to the storm. Sometimes the most powerful act is not pushing harder, but softening your grip. Allowing, trusting, letting things unfold. This is not passive. It's a kind of internal jujitsu, using the energy of life's chaos to find your stance again. Moving with, not against. And in that movement, something changes. You begin to feel lighter, calmer. You stop dragging yesterday into today. You stop living with clenched fists and start walking with open palms. You begin to trust that even when things don't go to plan, you'll still be okay. Because peace isn't found in controlling everything. It's found in needing to control less. And when you finally learn to release your grip on the world, you begin to reclaim your place within it. You're no longer fighting the tide, you're flowing with it. And in that flow there is grace. There is power. There is peace. When was the last time you truly noticed the sky? Not glanced at it, but paused long enough to see how the clouds slowly move, how the color shifts from hour to hour, how even a gray sky holds its own kind of calm. We overlook the simple things. Not because they lack meaning, but because we've been taught to chase bigger ones. Achievement, prestige, perfection. And in that chase, life becomes a race. And races rarely allow you to stop and feel the moment. But Stoicism invites us to slow down. Not because we're lazy or unambitious, but because speed without direction is chaos. Because not everything valuable screams for attention. Some of the richest experiences whisper quietly from the corners of ordinary life. Simplicity is not lack. It is clarity. It is returning to the core. A walk without a destination. A meal eaten slowly. A deep conversation. A moment of stillness between all the noise. The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus owned almost nothing. Marcus Aurelius, despite being an emperor, reflected often on how transient and humble life truly is. Their wisdom didn't arise from wealth or stimulation, but from attention. Deep, focused attention on what truly mattered. In our world, simplicity is rebellion. Against excess. Against constant distraction. Against the lie that happiness lies somewhere out there. No, it lies here. In this breath. In this silence. In this single act of choosing to notice. Watch a child play and you'll see what we've forgotten. Joy without agenda. Presence without analysis. Curiosity without pressure. They don't force happiness. It emerges naturally from their engagement with the now. So why can't we? Because we've been taught that rest is unproductive. That doing nothing is wasting time. That success must be earned through constant striving. And so we force clarity, force progress, force outcomes that aren't ready to unfold. But life is not a machine. It cannot be engineered into constant growth. Life is a rhythm. Like nature. Like seasons. There's a time to plant and a time to let the soil sit. A time to act and a time to pause. And knowing when to do which, that's wisdom. You don't need to be on all the time. You don't need to keep pushing just to feel worthy. You don't need to perform your life like it's a stage play. You are not behind. You are not late. You are exactly where you need to be to learn what you need to learn. Even your delays carry meaning. Even your setbacks shape your soul. So instead of rushing through them, meet them. Sit with them. Ask them what they're here to teach. Because the lesson always comes when you stop forcing the answer. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. Let things unfold in their time. Let life breathe. Trust that your path, even when it twists, is not broken. It's alive. And just like any living thing, it needs space, not control. Sometimes the greatest breakthroughs don't come from adding more pressure, but from releasing it. This is the paradox. When you stop trying so hard to make life work a certain way, it starts working in a way that fits you better. When you stop forcing, you start flowing. You start hearing your intuition again. You start recognizing the signs that were there all along. You start responding, not reacting. And in that state, you become deeply aligned, not with your expectations, but with reality. And reality, when met with presence, is far more beautiful than anything we could imagine. This is where Stoicism points us. Not to detachment from life, but to a deeper connection with it. A life lived with calm attention, conscious acceptance, and a heart open to what is, not just what we want. That's not weakness. That's strength. Because anyone can chase. Anyone can force. But it takes true courage to surrender. To be still. To wait. To listen. And in that listening, something amazing happens. You begin to realize you never needed to force your life into shape. You needed to listen for its shape all along. There is a quiet strength that emerges when you stop trying to bend life into your shape and instead begin shaping yourself to meet life as it is. This isn't surrender in the way the world defines it, as giving up or stepping back. No. This is the Stoic form of surrender, clarity, poise, and inner alignment in the face of uncertainty. And when you do this, when you stop forcing things, something remarkable begins to unfold. Your decisions become clearer. You no longer chase outcomes. You respond to opportunities. You no longer panic at detours. You notice where they might be redirecting you. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And begin asking, what is this here to teach me? It is a deep shift, from resistance to resonance. The Stoics taught that we suffer more from our expectations than from reality itself. That much of our frustration is born not from events, but from the story we tell ourselves about how those events should have gone. But what if there was no should? What if life was not a test to pass but a landscape to explore? We weren't meant to live in a constant state of pressure, chasing validation or forcing every hour into productivity. Life isn't a spreadsheet. It's a river. And rivers don't move by pushing, they flow. They carve paths over time, not with force, but with persistence, presence, and patience. In that spirit, maybe you don't need to accomplish everything today. Maybe what matters more is doing the next right thing, calmly, honestly, with care. Maybe what matters is being able to sit with yourself at the end of the day and say, I was present. I was sincere. I let life unfold and I showed up with grace. That's the quiet dignity Stoicism invites us to practice. Letting go doesn't mean abandoning your dreams. It means no longer chaining your peace to their timing. It means holding your plans loosely and your values tightly. It means doing your best without needing to control the rest. You learn to walk lightly, to love without attachment, to work without desperation, to move forward without fear. Because you understand now that forcing life often chokes the very joy from it. That what's meant for you will come, not when you grasp, but when you're ready. And readiness is cultivated not through panic or pressure, but through patience, clarity, and presence. Gratitude deepens this process. You begin to see how much you already have. How every ordinary moment is a quiet miracle. The sun rising again, your lungs filling, the way your body heals without you telling it to, the sound of wind in the trees, the warmth of a hand held, the silence after a long day. You don't need to chase magic. It's already here. And when you stop forcing, you start noticing. And in that noticing, you begin to transform. You become gentler, yet firmer. More flexible, yet more rooted. Less reactive, more reflective. You no longer fear change, you welcome it. You no longer fight uncertainty, you dance with it. You no longer cling, you trust. This is the paradoxical wisdom of the Stoic path. By releasing control, you reclaim your inner power. By doing less, you become more. By letting go, you become free. So if you're tired, anxious, or lost right now, ask yourself, what am I forcing? What story am I clinging to that no longer serves me? And what would happen if I simply stopped? Not gave up, but paused. Breathed. Step back. Listen. You might just hear life whispering the next step forward. One that doesn't come from pressure, but from peace. Not from fear, but from alignment. Not from forcing, but from flowing. And that's where the truest strength lives. Not in the loud striving, but in the quiet knowing. You don't have to force your life to mean something. If you live with presence, if you lead with values, if you learn to let go, you'll find it always has. If this spoke to you, subscribe to Stoic Way for more timeless wisdom. Comment below. What are you learning to stop forcing in your life, and how has that changed you?